Knowing your value and standing up for your worth is something I am very passionate about. And recently, 50 Cent articulated exactly how I feel. Take a look.
A bottle of water is $1 at the store, $2 at the gym, $4 at the airport, and $7 on a damn flight. Same water, different price tag. Why? It ain't about the water, it's about where it's at. See, when you feel like people ain't seeing your value, it ain't because you ain't worth much. It's because you in the wrong spot. Maybe you ain't around the right crowd. Maybe you stuck in a place that ain't built to recognize what you bring. So next time you feel underestimated, stop doubting your worth. Ask yourself, where am I standing?
Man, listen.
How good is that?
Church.
So good. And today we are going to help you advocate for yourself with some advice from Summer Allen. She's the author of Lose the Debate, a practical guide to emotional intelligence and successful dialogue. So this is such an important conversation, and I know that your work really centers around people knowing their self-worth. If people are sitting at home and wondering, like, do I even know it?
Right.
What do you say to them?
The first thing I would tell them is to really understand what the definition of self-worth and self-value it is. And so when we talk about how do you understand if you have it, is having a realistic self-awareness. So really understanding who you are, as well as a positive self-concept. So those are the first two components that we grounded in terms of
But how do you do that? Like, how do you actually put that to practice?
Absolutely.
You know?
And so it's about the self-reflection.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about true self-awareness, it's about sitting back and really understanding who you are, like understanding your strengths, your weaknesses, understanding your traumas, understanding your triggers, understanding how you were raised, and how all of these things kind of culminate into this equation of how we see ourselves. And so that self-concept is oftentimes a narrative that has been written based off of our past experiences, based off of our traumas, based off of how other people have told us who we were.
Totally.
And so it's about fleshing through all of those things and really understanding in actuality who you really are.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes knowing yourself requires courageous, risk-taking conversation.
There you go.
But it takes, like, when we hold each other's hands and stand up for each other, when we make these risk-taking statements, then it's a testament that this is a true story.
Yeah.
And it affects me.
And that people have your back, and it affects you, but it affects
them.
A ton of
exactly.
women.
It's not just my story.
No.
I'm not speaking just for myself.
No.
I'm speaking for all of us.
Yes. And Taraji's talking about pay equity, which we know has not changed enough for women, particularly women of color.
Yes.
I mean, it stayed almost static for 20 years. So what do you say about that and how we can really make change?
It takes the allies in the workplace to really be realistic and truthful about the situation that is taking place in terms of pay equity. It also takes individuals being bold and being courageous and saying the things that people often find hard to say. Like Taraji. Like, I understand my worth. I know that there's a disparity. I know that there's a level of unfairness that exists. And so when you have individuals who are courageous enough, to hold account to the system, and individuals within the system that are courageous enough to make change, that's the only way we're going to move forward in terms of really being able to improve pay equity. But it also starts with individuals understanding their worth and being able to have enough courage to do that.
To have those conversations. But what if you do know your worth, but you're working, you know, I'm sure there's plenty of people watching that are like, but I do know what I'm worth, and yet my boss doesn't seem to see it. My colleagues don't seem to recognize it.
That's a tough one, but it goes back to what 50 Cent said.
Yeah.
And so
then you're not in the right
You're
place.
not in the right environment.
Exactly.
You're not at the right organization. You're not under the right leader. The challenging part is oftentimes people who don't have a high self-value and worth, guess what? They come into the position and they say, you know what? I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah.
I'm just happy to be
I think
here.
a lot of people work from a place of fear.
There you go.
And you can't grow in fear.
Yeah.
You can't grow in fear. Someone has to rise above that fear, because that's the only way change is going to happen. Everybody being quiet and going to their little corners and just
not
surviving.
talking.
That's not helping yourself
or anyone.
And it's not helping anyone.
Yeah. And when you talk about surviving, that's what we really focus on, especially when we talk to executive women in organizations, is surviving versus thriving.
Yeah.
Are you in a scarcity mindset? Are you operating out of fear? Are you operating of, I'm just happy to be here, versus, no, I actually have value to bring? Because it's completely different mindset when you shift over.
So you have this really great to-do list for people at home that are like, I'm better than this.
Yeah.
What sort of you're ready for more? What's your to-do list?
The first first thing is really to ground yourself in your level of self-awareness. Like, self-awareness is truly the pinnacle of this entire process. And so the first one is really do a self-analysis. And what I do is we walk people through what we call a value proposition, where you sit down and you really write down the reality of who you are. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? You know, where can I thrive? Where have I seen myself thrive? Where do I actually have evidence of this in my life? And also, you know, what are some of the challenges that I've experienced, but what are the resilience points that exist there? And so when you write it down, you get to really see realistically who you are. So that's the first thing. That self-awareness is key. The second thing that we always talk about is, even though I know a lot of people say, I don't care what other people think. But in all honesty,
we do.
It's not a matter of you determining your self-worth and value based off of what other people think of you, but it's about you gathering data and feedback from individuals who know you, who can be able to show you like parts of yourself that sometimes we can't see. Yeah, it's that Johari's window. Like, maybe I don't see those certain points of me, that I don't show up in my full self, but other people have seen it.
Yeah.
And so what does that look like, and how do other people receive me and perceive me in the world? In that, one of the other things I always say is really being able to ground yourself in the ability to release perfectionism.
It's very,
that's a trap.
That's a trap. It's a trap.
And also,
because what's perfection?
It's boring.
By
What does
whose
it look like?
standard?
Yeah, exactly.
But by whose standard?
exactly.
Who's judging what's perfect or not?
There you go.
Exactly.
You'll drive yourself crazy.
You will absolutely drive yourself.
Yeah.
And it's unrealistic. And it sets you up for this space where then if you do anything incorrectly or make any mistake,
you're hard on yourself.
You're hard on yourself. And it impacts how you see your value and your worth. And that's not the case. And so life is about making mistakes and making corrections and learning from that and adding those mistakes and how you were resilient in them. There you go. It seasons you. It adds to your value.
You're never going to know if the stove is hot. You got to touch it.
Got to touch it a little bit.
You know?
At least got to get close.
Failure, I know, and failure is important. Like, I don't know that we let our youngest generation fail enough.
It builds character.
It
No,
does.
you're right about that.
Right?
We're too busy giving them what we didn't have.
Exactly.
Go.
We got to let them fail. You're the best.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was so interesting.
Absolutely.
And to check out Summer's book, Lose the Debate, go to today.com books.
Yeah, and we're going to read that one. Thank you. Thank you. We'll be back right after this.
Yes.